Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. Hey, namaste, namaste. Happy Guru Purnima. It is the perfect day to talk about the Guru. The Guru has so many different meanings in the Sanskrit language. Mostly we refer to the Guru as that man or that woman who removes the darkness. But another popular meaning describes the Guru as the model of the Absolute, if not the Absolute itself. One who is beyond name and form and quality, completely unable to be wrapped up in any guna identification, beyond all the limitations and dualities of the world that we live in. But in general, Sanskrit, it means heavy. Dr. Robert Svoboda likes to refer to his guru as a heavyweight, that heaviness being really, really important in the context of the student, because the student is a lightweight, someone who's not yet in touch with the deepest portions of their reality. Someone who doesn't yet have a firm and healthy relationship with the earth element, the main element of our experience here on earth, and whose chief characteristic is stability. So what a guru should be teaching, out of all the many things that can be taught, the first one is really to become stable and firm, to become aligned with reality, which is the ultimate reality, and acting as a stable conduit between that supreme reality and the limited reality of earthly existence. And this is particularly important when, in fact, a student is moving away from the bounds of Earth's gravity, both the physical gravity of Earth and the subtle gravity of the astral world, because we as earthlings, as human beings, have evolved in, and each of us has been born into gravity, a thing that keeps us tied down to this planet, our source of stability. So when one wants to make spiritual advancement, it's a matter of moving in the direction of spirit. And if you move in the spirit without having a firm foundation in the physical and the archetypal and the subtle realities, then you become unbalanced. And you will not become what your guru wants you to become, which is stable and reliable as a human being. And so what a real guru wants to do is transform you into his own guru, to cause the limited individual to become open and to become a conduit for that supreme reality. So this is why the famous Guru mantra, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat, Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. I bow down to that Guru who is Brahma, who is Vishnu, who is Mahesh, who is the creator and the preserver and the destroyer of universes, who is Sakshat, the embodiment, evident to all who looks at that Guru, Param Brahman, the embodiment of the supreme reality. That is the Guru to whom I bow. That's the ultimate supreme Guru. And anyone who has a Guru will always be experiencing the reality of that Guru in two ways. The first is the reality of the human limitation of that human being. All human beings have human limitations, right? But to the extent that that Guru can act as a vehicle for the supreme reality, to that extent, Guru is Guru, the supreme reality, the heavyweight, the self that's acting through that Guru for the benefit of all sentient beings, but especially the disciple. The civilization of India has examined this question of teacher and student for a long time, and has identified many examples of different kinds of relationships between a guru and a disciple. There are many types of guru. You can have a guru for a particular discipline, like tantric yoga, like Ayurveda, like Jyotisha, like Bhakti. And there are family gurus who will teach the whole family the practices that they'll carry on through all of the generations. You can have a guru who, for whatever reason, your personal guru sends you to learn with another guru, but ideally you will have a sadguru, a personal guru who is relating to you as one individual to another, and relating to you in the context of the word sad, which means true. And so that guru is a true guru. And when that guru is personally connected to you and is assisting you to connect to that supreme truth of Satchitananda, that guru may or may not teach you some particular mantras, or may not teach you any practices at all, or anything that has to do with manifested knowledge. So there are many types, but it's always good to have a guru who is impeccably connected to that supreme reality. Yeah, there have been many examples of people becoming enlightened, even though they had gurus who were not enlightened themselves, perhaps. People who have made great advancements, even though their gurus were not advanced and just pretending. Unfortunately, it's more common that if you have a guru that is not sat, who is not transmitting reality, but in fact perhaps interposing himself between the student and the supreme reality, it's more common that there will be an imbalance in that relationship. In such a case, like when you have a guru greedy for money and a false student, it's said in the tradition that both of them are dangling in the pit of hell, another Svobodaism. Originally, and among those gurus who are still sad, a guru was never interested in money, per se. Traditionally in India, the guru would always say, after a period of 12 years during which time you lived in the guru's house and collected firewood and cleaned the toilet or served or made the food or whatever, you would do your studies and generally display the fact that you could be focused and attentive. And once the guru had trained you and had brought you to the end of those 12 years of study, got you to do your 15,000 hours or whatever you needed to do to move ahead in your spiritual practice, then that guru would ask you for what is called dakshina, guru dakshina, an offering that would reflect the appropriate recompense for that 12 years of teaching, combined with the 12 years of service. And it reminds me of a story that Baba would tell me once upon a time when we were sitting in front of the fire, just over a cup of chai, really, really early on in my discipleship. The story of Narada the Sage, who had approached Vishnu with a particular burning question in his mind. Narada Muni went to Vishnu Loka and engaged the Lord and said, "Hey, my Lord, I have a very deep question. I hope you'd answer my question for me." And Vishnu, the Lord, said, "Sure, of course I'll answer. I honor you in this world. I honor you in every world. You are my deep devotee. But first, if you don't mind, do you see that bucket there? If you'd please just take that bucket and go over to yonder lake and fill it up with some water and bring it back for me. I'd like to quench my thirst." And so Narada dutifully picked up the bucket and went over to yonder lake, and while he was scooping up some water from the lake, he happened to look up and see across the lake there was a village and a village girl who was doing something in the water at the same time, perhaps scooping up her own water or whatever. Their eyes met. Suddenly they fell in love, and a longer story short, they got married, they had children, they made a life, and 12 years later, Narada remembered, "Oi, I left the bucket. I was supposed to bring water to my Lord." And he went back to where that bucket still was, and he brought his bucket and went back to Vishnu Loka, and he said, "Sorry, I'm late, my Lord." And so we have the meaning of illusion there. Baba was telling me this story once upon a time. I had no idea about the tradition of 12 years of service. I just thought that it meant that after 12 years I might get rid of some of the stories in my own mind, perhaps pierce the veil of illusion. But what happened was that it was about 11 years into our relationship when we were sitting in front of another fire having a different cup of tea, and he told me the story again, this time substituting the 12 years that Narada was engaged with his family with 18 years or 20 years or something. And I'm bursting my bubble. Here I am thinking I'm right on the precipice. My 12 years is about to end. And he said, no, put that ego at ease, young David. But, it's really interesting for me to learn of the traditions. Later, after my experience is finished, I collected the wood and the well water. We didn't have a toilet, so I didn't have to do that. The jungle was our toilet. And he did teach me to cook with a pocket knife. We'd chop our garlic and our ginger there on a really, really small cutting board, and we only had a one hole oven on which we did all of our cooking and boiled our bath water. But otherwise he called in a neighbor to sweep up, or he washed the dishes himself every morning. He didn't actually let me make the fire until a good few years into the relationship, though offerings into the fire were something from the very, very beginning. So it wasn't exactly the traditional relationship that you see written about in scripture or that you hear handed down. Now, of course, everything in our world is commercialized all over the world. And so now it's common that you have gurus who identify their disciples by how much money they have, not necessarily engaging them in service. And so when you have a guru who is greedy, who is focusing on what money he or she can extract from the student, then the ultimate result, unfortunately, is not going to be good, because the guru is coming from a place of untruth to begin with. So if someone is looking in the market for a guru, then this would be a good place to begin. You should consider that the person that you want as your guru is not insisting on a trade for money, for knowledge. And this, of course, may be more prevalent of a kind of problem today, but in the past it was still a problem. It was often the case that someone had gotten some learning and become confident, and with that learning they became arrogant about that learning and would attract all sorts of disciples who would similarly be interested in becoming very eminent and displaying that eminence and profiting by that eminence. And so what we're interested in is not that sort of guru, but one who is focused on self, who is doing their best, allowing the self to manifest through each and every pore of their body 24/7, and who is only interested in training up the student so that the student will understand that the guru-disciple relationship is really just a way that the embodied self in the guru can learn how to identify and interact with the self and come to love the self that is in the disciple, and vice versa. Self is talking to self about self. It's a great play of awareness. And I can attest to this personally, because when I saw Babaji for the first time, he was most precisely the model of any description that I'd ever read in any kind of book. Any kind of description I'd read of Satchidananda any place, whatever that might look like, yes, he was that. Every pore oozed that. There wasn't a doubt. And this is what he told me from the beginning about the Guru-Chela relationship, that it was simply a relationship between very good friends. In fact, he never actually allowed me, he never acknowledged himself as guru to me. He never used that term with me. He never allowed my ego to rest on that particular status, because if I had grasped onto, hey, I've got a guru, now I am something special, I have risen in the spiritual world, it wasn't actually until about 17 years had passed that he allowed me to hear him speaking with a local shopkeep in passing, who had serendipitously inquired as to my status, and I was allowed to see Baba's casual acknowledgement. Yes, he is disciple, but I was 17 years in now. I'd calmed down just a little bit, but admittedly I was filled with pride to see that acknowledgement. It's been said in texts that while it's a great blessing to have a guru, it's an even greater blessing for a guru to have a good disciple. Because once the guru has gone through all of that work to learn how to act as a vehicle for this expression of reality, to find an appropriate vehicle, an appropriate vessel to allow that reality to pour into, is a great expression of grace, a great boon. And it's for this reason that people who practice Guru Yoga will always put the Guru before everything. And there's a famous example of an artisan, a great musician, poet. Her name is Mira, and she's a saint of the medieval period of India. And one day she found herself having a vision of her Guru, and at the same time her Ishta Devtar, the deity with which she was most affiliated with or most fond of, Govinda, Krishna. And she wrote a song about it. And in this song she wrote, both my Guru and my beloved deity, Govinda, are there in front of me. Which do I respect first? And her conclusion in the song is, I must first bow down to my Guru, because it's thanks to my Guru that I was able to realize that relationship with my Lord. And this isn't true in every case, but it was true in hers. It wasn't true in mine. I came to my Guru looking for a confirmation of what I already knew. Well, I suppose Mira did too. We've always known who we are at heart, right? But somehow we lose sight of that. We get lost in our storylines. Thanks to the stability of the Guru, we're brought back from that particular brink of madness, made to realign with our essential natures. And the gratitude is boundless. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. This is the devotion to the Guru. So those who practice Guru Yoga will always first bow down to the Guru and only worship their beloved deity in the context of that Guru. This is Guru Yoga. Because ultimately, the process of going from being a disciple to being someone who has matured into a human being, a real human being, who has an appropriate relationship with this world and the world beyond, ultimately that happens when you can transform all of the substances in your physical form, all of the, what did Dr. Svoboda call them? He's an Ayurveda guy. Rasas, all of the juices in your organism, all of the physical juices, all of the emotional juices, all of the mental juices. All day long, all of these juices are permeating my reality, interacting with one another, and we've got all of these different flavors of juices flowing through us all day long. And so what we're aiming to do is take all of these mental activities, fluctuations, emotions, and transform them into one nice juice, one good juice. And that in the context of Guru Yoga is called bhakti, love and appreciation for the Guru. That should be the overwhelming, overflowing intellectual activity, overflowing emotion, and to transform everything that happens within the parameters of this embodied experience into an offering to the Guru. And at the point that one can actually get to that point where this alchemical transmutation of the juices has been complete and the elixir of life has thus been created in the great crucible of the heart, in such a way, then automatically one's attention, having been focused, having been brought to a laser-like refinement, this facilitates the transformation of the limited individual into something new. Indian devotional literature always begins with salutations to the Guru. This is the essence of the worship of Hanuman in the Hanuman Chalisa, and the Gita, the Gyaneshwari Gita. Throughout the entire commentary Gyaneshwara consistently returns to his guru. And in this case, the guru is his brother. But he's consistent throughout. Every breath he takes, every word he writes, he's expressing some gratitude, some acknowledgement, some reference to his guru. The entire work was an act of devotion to his guru. And in order to get to a relationship like that, you're going to be tested. The guru is always going to test you. Like say you have a clay pot, or say you are a clay pot, and you haven't been fired properly, and someone pours liquid into you, then you're simply going to be a leaky vessel, right? You're not going to be digesting all of that, you're not going to be able to contain it, and you're going to fall apart and turn back into a formless lump of clay, and that's not going to benefit you or your life, and it's not going to benefit your guru, it's not going to benefit the world in general. And so the guru is going to try to burn away all of your imperfections, so that when someone taps on you, then there will be a beautiful ringing noise instead of just a dull thud. And unfortunately, the testing is going to have to be a serious process. So even if the guru is nice to you and kind and indulgent, then when the time comes to find out if you're really ready for understanding a particular aspect of reality, then the guru is going to have to be ruthless. He's going to take on a face. He's going to fire you. You're going to walk through the fire, because that is what is to your benefit. I remember one of my more poignant tests was being exiled from the hermitage and told in no uncertain terms never to contact him again. He was done with me. I was on my own. And it was perfect timing. I was getting about all kinds of foolishness in my life, and he'd given me the tools to work with if I should just be determined enough to use them. Oh, it was a cold, hard winter in the Himalayan valley that season. But God, I did my best to find every loophole I could through that test. I really did. I ran back to the hermitage when he wasn't there. He was off someplace else, and I'd get myself close to the linga and make a fire in the duna all by myself. And he'd come back to the ashram and put on his scariest face and, "What are you doing here?" And I'd be looking at him in all sorts of innocence, and he'd calm down because he'd realize that I was just standing there innocently in front of him. I had let go of my foolishness temporarily. I had surrendered completely, and I saw the limitation in him. He was beside himself. He didn't know how to carry through the test, but he really changed real fast and put on an even scarier face and looked at me like I was the devil incarnate himself. "I know your tricks," he would tell me. I trembled. There I trembled. But he let me stay in the garden just for 5 minutes longer, and before kicking me back out into the valley. And as a matter of fact, he sent me down south to do a similar test in the desert as well. I remember that. Wow, it was just full of tests. Point is, it's like a surgeon who sees a large boil on his patient, right? He's not going to hesitate to lance that thing, even if it causes a bit of temporary pain, even if he gets a little bit of blood on himself. That surgery is needful, right? I have to be brought back to good health somehow, some way, and in better condition than I was before, even if it does cause me a little bit of screaming, right? The guru is a benefactor, like Carlos Castaneda says in his books about his sorcerer guru Don Juan. The guru comes to you when you require something and provides you what you need, not usually what you think you need, though there might be some overlap, but always what you need. There are some really great stories, not only in India, but around the world, of gurus testing their disciples in China and South America. It seems to be the way of things, and honestly, having been on the receiving end, makes perfect sense to me. And neither are the tests always painful, per se, but they are poignant. The Maharashtrian saint Namdev had his ego broken through a great test by a saint who hadn't yet become his guru. Namdev had become a bit haughty with his knowledge and intelligence, and he thought he was all the stuff. He thought he knew what was up, right? He had the stone and the steel, and he was all that. He thought he was all that, but his vessel was leaking a bit. And when he entered the temple one day to see an old man with his feet resting on the linga, he was angered, full of self-righteousness, that this old man could be desecrating the temple by putting his feet on Shiva. And he urged the old man to remove his feet from the linga, and the old man said, "Hey, I'm old, can't move very well," and he begged Namdev to give him a hand, and Namdev did so, right? He took the old man's feet and placed them on the ground, and immediately a new linga sprung up right where the old man's feet landed. Namdev was taken aback by that, but hadn't grokked to what was going on just yet, and so he picked up the man's feet again and put them in a different place on the floor in an empty space, and boom, another linga popped up right there, and right. They repeated that a few more times, and at some point Namdev gave up, and the old man asked him wryly to show him some place where Shiva did not exist, and he would gladly put his feet there. At that point, Namdev got it. He got it, and he was able to be removed from the fire because his burning was done, right? Because where is Shiva not, right? And it was through this old man that Namdev was finally able to connect to the supreme reality. There are always great tests going on, exploring the depths and strides in the disciples' gyan, disciples' knowledge. So all the tests don't hurt, right? But they are always burning us. And so when you're fortunate enough to have an embodied guru, you can be absolutely sure that there will be tests. There will be moments that the guru appears to be ruthless, moments when she appears to be crazy, moments when he is the embodiment of compassion. And this might beg the question of then what distinguishes a guru from any other teacher who takes upon themselves the mantle of guru and seeks to test in such a way as might cause pain. And this brings us back to the beginning of this talk. There are gurus and there are gurus, and a certain measure of discrimination is going to be required when you meet yours. You have to be able to distinguish who is speaking. Is it the self speaking through this person? Or is it the limitation of the human experience? There's an equal amount of responsibility in the disciple as there is in the guru. And this is why everyone is not yet prepared to enter into a relationship like this, which is literally reality defining and world building. Baba was forever admonishing me not to believe what he told me, but rather to analyze an idea 10,000 times before reaching a conclusion. You might have guessed, I'm a head guy, right? Jnana Yoga is the path towards which my own disposition, my own nature points me. Next time I might be a body guy or a heart guy. I might be the whole stuff wrapped up in a neat little package. Who knows the truth of all that? No blind faith, he would shout often. Stop making such a nuisance in my ear with all the doubt you hold, Devanand. Always examine what you see in front of you ruthlessly, unflinchingly, impeccably. Not to be concerned with this is my boss and this is my wife and this is my guru and this is my this and this is my that. That kind of thing should not confuse. If you are the caretaker of a garden and all the flowers are falling off the trees during a storm, are you going to be able to save the flowers? No. They fall automatically. So like that, you do what you have to do to take care of yourself without thinking overly much about the falling flowers. If you're always running for the good, then there's going to be a big imbalance. And in any case, the Lord is not going to test you, but will express through you. So not to have any blind faiths. You are not an evil worshipping guy. And anyway, you can't bribe the Lord anyway. Not with sacrifice, not with ritual, not with any spiritual practice. And so there's never any reason to get into self-doubt or second-guessing what arises naturally. That is the self expressing through you. Sometimes Baba spoke as that representation of the supreme reality. instructing in the nature of the self. And sometimes he spoke simply as a man, and it was up to me to decipher that in order to reap the fruit of his teaching at every level. How to be a man in this life, and how to be a god, or the absolute expressing in human form. And such is the reason for the title of the book I'm forever yet to publish, Two Idiots and a Man, about the incessant conversation going on in the mind, trying to reconcile these two primal urges to normalcy and transcendence. Now, perhaps it's the case that, right at the moment you don't have a personal guru who is incarnate in a form in which you can personally relate to that guru. And this is not something you have to be concerned about. What you should do is prepare yourself so that you can be ready to meet the guru when he or she arrives. And if you're sincere and prepare, then as soon as you're ready, that guru will appear. And it's for this reason that you shouldn't go out and try to search for a guru, because at the right moment, that guru is going to appear on your path. And that preparation will fundamentally mean that you're making yourself as firm as possible. You set up what Patanjali calls the niyamas, right? You set up a good niyama, a good system of behavior for yourself. Niyama is the second anga of the Ashtanga Yoga, yama, niyama. You set up a good pattern of behavior. You learn to live a good and normal and healthy life, and that means that you nourish yourself with healthy food, limiting the amount that you eat, eating more for your health than to satisfy your tongue. Don't overstimulate yourself, don't understimulate yourself. Have a practice. Circulate your energy. Wake early in the morning. Engage with some breath or some energy arts, some pranayama. You're creating an environment both within yourself and without of yourself to make it easier for serendipity to answer your need when you're ready. And keep yourself aware, alert, and with as few preconceptions as possible as to who might actually be your guru in this lifetime. I'm pretty sure I should be calling my daughter Guru at this moment. That only gets complicated if I forget that I'm her father and her guide, but I don't, and at the same time I'm not mindless to the teachings she offers either. The natural upwelling of the self within her is not impeded by me, and she knows she has the freedom to express. There's a balance to be drawn. For sure, she's a kid, in every sense of the word, and I'm happy that is so. The point is that the guru can speak through anyone, so as far as possible, try not to keep any preconceptions. And without these preconceived stories, staying mindful of the beliefs that we attach to, or similarly by holding space for our own selves in which anything is possible at any time, then it's much more likely something positive will happen. Don't go looking for a guru, but be receptive when the guru shows up. There's another balancing act to check your discrimination and preparedness for the moment that the real deal shows. It's definitely useful to go and meet spiritual people when they come in your direction. You get valuable information about their experience, and you get to have an idea of how to evaluate the degree to which they have done the work for themselves. And perhaps you can also create a guru relationship with a personality that was alive in the past. With your focus and concentration and laser-like attention, you might tap into the source of that radiance. We see it all the time, right? Ram Das is my guru, Yogananda is my guru, Nisargadatta is my guru. Yeah, it's possible if you are really laser-focused on that idea. And there again, we'll see the upwelling of the relationship between the self and the self, which doesn't let a little thing like space-time stand in its way, right? Test yourself. When you come into contact with that person that you think might be your guru, check yourself. Is your heart ringing like a bell when they speak? Does your mind automatically become focused, or does it run someplace else? Again, this could be saying something about you as well as the guru. There are many variables at play, but when the relationship is solid, it's like falling in love. There's no room for doubt. You will be laser focused Just like you cannot force yourself to be in love, neither can you focus yourself to be attracted to a guru. But when the real deal comes around, the presence is heavy. A real heavy weight will affect all in their presence somehow, some way. And yet, even that will be put to the test, because I've been with Baba in a crowd of people who couldn't feel a thing either. But for you who are ready, who are actively preparing, who are searching, who are actively awakening, the Guru may be on their way. And when they arrive, it's a presence you will feel tangibly. Be careful. There are many, many so-called gurus nowadays in this modern era of my truth and one truth, and the Guru is inside, and there is no such thing as truth, and political correctness, and programs and courses and interconnectivity and internet. It's so very important for each of us to identify what is really, really real, and what is that reality we can identify with. So we need to evaluate everything in our environment in this way, but especially the information that comes across our screens, planting seeds in our minds. So if you're greedy for knowledge, or you're greedy for spiritual development, or you're greedy for approval, then it's going to be very easy to attract a similar sort of teacher. But when your innermost reality meets the innermost awareness and consciousness of another being, then there's a relationship between two people, that they are acting as guru to one another. One will know that immediately, and you may suspect, or now prompt yourself to feel into that idea. And yet, as my Guru always said, in this ever-changing world, on this never-ending path, we come in alone and we go out alone, and so we should be properly aligned with these ideas called life and death, the latter merely being a stopover to the next stage. And there will always be, according to this tradition, there will always be a next stage, unless total liberation. So what to worry about? Why to rush? Everything will come to you at the proper time, and no amount of hurriedness is going to push the pace of life 1 inch further anyway. Ganeshwara Maharaj, he was the author of the Gita, the Ganeshwara Gita, but he's also author of another beautiful book. It's called the Amrit Varabhavana, the nectar of experience, or the experience of nectar. Source wanted to experience itself. When it was not but unbounded, limitless, unimaginable light, Source desired to experience itself, and with a great love expressed, Source became force, God became goddess, and that energy went forward. Point became line, became plane, became every dimension of reality, what we call reality now. It went forward to form the elements of earth, air, water, and fire, finally to evolve in this human condition that we're all enjoying today. Beautiful, beautiful stories. And in this way, a human being has to see in his own face, in her own face, a mirror of that supreme reality. That's our job, to know ourselves and to act as the mirror for that supreme reality. Allow ourselves to do what we do and be as we are, as Ramana Maharishi would say. To be that, what we are, naturally, limited and unlimited at the same time. Both of these primal urges reconciled, evolving, as only the Absolute can do. May the blessings of the Guru be with you, and yours in every way possible. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Om Shri Guru Deva Namaha.